the Maracame in the Huiracuta, which is down in central Mexico. I lived there for 11 months when I was about 21 years old, 22 years old. My job in the village was to start the village fire. And this was an uncontacted village who thought that using psychotropic herbs to get an experience was cheating, which fit in well with my life because I was a yogi. But there weren't matches. There was what's called a fire bow. And with a fire bow, preparation is everything. And the preparation is a very disciplined act. You have to get dried grass, and then you have to get shredded dry bark as the second stage. Then you have to get little twigs, and you have to get sticks, and you have to get logs. There was no axes there, so you got all this, broken with rocks and what have you. And then you ultimately had logs. And you rest the spindle under your chin with your hand right here. And if you've ever seen a fire bow, it's a lot of this. And the first thing you put down in there is pitch from the pinyon pine trees, because that will create the most friction. And it's friction that creates the heat, that ultimately creates the glowing pitch, which will then catch on fire, which then you put a pile of dried grass. And once that starts to burn, you put your dried shredded bark. And once that starts to burn, you put your twigs. Once that starts to burn, you put your sticks, and you keep building it like that. You do this for a long time before you get anything. And the moment you stop, it cools down. So the moment you stop, you're back to square one. The only thing that would keep me satisfied in the early stages every morning of building that thing, because I was cold. There was a few thoughts that went through my brain while I was building it. Because I wasn't experiencing the fire yet, but I was experiencing the fact of fire. I wasn't yet experiencing the truth of fire. The fact of fire was that I was going to do that which I had been taught how to do until there was fire. When you get on an airplane, you're going from Los Angeles to New York or India. Do you walk up and down the aisle talking to the people going, isn't it a bummer that we're not there yet? Isn't it a total drag that we're still on this plane? I mean, it's been an hour and 15 minutes and we're still just sitting in these flying chairs. Or do you get on the plane and you're pretty locked in that you're going to end up in New York City? Which is it? You're complaining about? So New York is a fact, but it's not yet a truth, correct?
Right.
So what do? You put something in your carry-on that can occupy you, or you go to sleep. Between the time that you sit in that flying chair and they let you off the plane. Just like when I'm building that fire, I'm just doing this, but I know the fire is coming. And the fact that I know the fire is coming gives me the wherewithal to keep doing this. But if I don't know the fire is coming, I'm going to give this up and I'm going to stay in whatever pattern I'm in. which is my psycho-emotional patterning, my thoughts and my feelings, from which I'm building the moments. But at all times when I'm building the moments, those moments are from a pattern. And I don't care where the patterns come from. Pattern can come from my ancestors, it could come from my experience in this life, it could come from my previous incarnations. But the patterns are there, and I'm experiencing the feeling. And I'm having the thoughts that support the feelings. If I'm having a certain emotion, and the thoughts are supporting that emotion, but I don't want that emotion, am I experiencing conflict? I don't want the emotion, my feelings and the thoughts are supporting that, and I've got this other component, which is my desire, my preference. I'm experiencing conflict. Is that a good conflict or is that a bad conflict? Or is all conflict good or bad? All conflict is good. Conflict is an energy, isn't it? Isn't it? Does the wind conflict with your sail? Because what is the sail doing? The sail is, in a boat, the sail is causing the wind to either be captured or deflected, right? It's not just letting the wind blow, correct? People that say, I don't like conflict, will always go backwards or become very small. The idea of not liking conflict is a very, very entrained idea. Do you know what entrained us to not like conflict? Our slavery. Those who were in charge taught us that conflict was bad, right? And we've all been both in charge and slave. In all of our incarnations, we've experienced both sides of that equation many, many times. But what does the in charge always tell, you know, the slaves, whatever, the indentured servants, whatever you want to call them, whatever period of time it was? Conflict is bad, isn't it? Raising your voice against the authority is incorrect. I mean, isn't that what is happening in this world today? I mean, isn't all this surveillance? I mean, it doesn't really matter if they're surveilling us or not. Those that feel like surveillance is an intrusion, I feel like it's just a free student. You know, but those that feel like it's an intrusion will alter their character if they feel like they're being surveilled. And that's the purpose of this whole propaganda of surveillance. It doesn't matter if they're surveilling or not. You remember back in the 80s how Russia went broke? Soviet Union went broke? Why did the Soviet Union go broke? Because Reagan kept telling everybody in the world that he had this thing called Star Wars. That he could shoot down missiles. It had never been tried, and to this day it's never succeeded. But he said, we've got it, and it's so cool, and it can protect us from anything, and the Soviet Union tried to spend all the money they could possibly spend trying to figure out how to do it. And like us, they never figured out how to do it, but they spent all their bucks. Or, I guess, rubles. for you to think that you shouldn't be you is the most notorious way of controlling. And what do we use to not be ourselves? We can use depression, we can use sadness, we can use repression, suppression, we can use conflict and be against conflict. You know, we can use so many elements to keep ourselves from growing. Why would we want to keep ourselves from growing?
Unfamiliar.
What?
Unfamiliar territory.
Unfamiliar territory. And so when you're feeling anything like depression, I mean, I go through it too. We all go through it. What I do is I sit